Hey everybody, and welcome back to our next installment in our QRP head-to-head series. So last time we pitted the True SDX against the G90, and predictably the G90 came out as the winner. So that wasn't really a fair fight, and today's comparison is going to be much more fair. So we're going to take a look at this radio and compare it to another radio with some similar features and some features maybe that this radio doesn't have. So I'm going to attempt to get a little bit better focus on the front of these radios. My last video, I was up a little too close to this radio to get good screen resolution. It was kind of blurry. It's hard with this GoPro because I can't, they're just focused on whatever they focus on. And I can't tell from the little viewfinder whether we're in focus or not. It looks like it is, and then when I watch the video, it's a little fuzzy. So I'm going to try to keep it back a little further so we can get a little bit more clear view of these radios. But it kind of is what it is. I'll do the best I can do. So just to reiterate, so the G90, they're about $445. Right now, you can get them for like $399 with a bundle because it's Christmas time 2023. The size is 1.77 by 4.72 by 8.26. It weighs 4.33 pounds. It's got 20 watts out. It's got a color waterfall with a pan adapter and a CW decoder. It has a phenomenal internal tuner. It is 160 meters to 10 meters. It runs phone, it runs CW, it runs digital, right? So we looked at we didn't look at every feature this radio had last time because this radio actually is chock full of a lot of features and it would take all day to go through every little nuance, okay? If you buy one of these, the first time you use it, there is a little bit of a learning curve. There's a lot to learn with this radio. All right, I'm gonna move this light up a little bit, see if we can get the front of these radios a little better. All right, but it's not super terribly complicated to use. This radio is fairly straightforward once you learn what all the buttons do. There is actually a Xiegu G90, or Xiegu, however it's pronounced, G90 cheat sheet you can download from the internet that has all of the different functions and things like that. So we're going to pit this radio against a radio that is much more comparable than the True SDX was. So let me pop this out of the way here real quick, and we'll bring over the contender. And the contender is going to be the FX-4CR by BG2FX. So this radio, in many ways, is much more comparable than the True SDX was. So in the box, we've got the user manual, which is reasonably well written, fairly straightforward. We've got our power cable, all right? We've got, oh, you know what just occurred to me is I'm gonna need a power source for this radio and I can't power this on what I've been powering them on. Let me grab sorry about that. Just occurred to me I can't run this radio on the stuff I've been running the other ones on. So let me grab myself a 3 amp hour Bioenno. These are easy because it's got power poles on it, and this, as you can see, has power poles on it as well. This is the battery I normally run with these radios. However, if I'm going to run this thing at the full 20 watts for any length of time, I'm actually going to run a bigger battery than this. This is not really enough to run this thing for extended periods of time at 20. It's pushing it at 20 watts as is. So we've got our power cable. Right, here's our connection. Power poles on the other end. This does come with a fuse, inline fuse, and a ferrite. In the box, you'll also get a little mic. This is actually a nice little mic. You will get a USB cable. I put a little USB-A to USB-C adapter on here, but this is the programming cable for the radio. You can also use it for digital modes if you wanted to. And then the radio itself. Now, I cut the foam that comes in this box. This is normally got a piece here also. I cut that out to give myself a little more room for the rest of the accoutrements. So let's get that box out of the way. Let's take a look at the radio itself. So you guys have seen this radio on my channel before. I did put these little feet on the back of this radio from Amazon. They're little fold-out feet. There are tall risers and then little short ones. If I can get those up. Maybe. All right, let's flip it up this way. Do that. Right there, these little short ones also. So depending on how high you want to get this radio in the air, right, we can change our, there's the short ones, there's nothing, and here's the tall ones. I usually run the tall ones because it gives me the correct viewing angle. All right, those are a nice addition, not required, but they make using this radio a little bit easier. So this radio, I'm going to do the same thing I did with the True SDX. I'm not going to transmit with this radio because this radio does not have an internal tuner. But I will hook the antenna up so you can see what the waterfall looks like and things like that. This radio does have a color waterfall and pan adapter. It does not have a CW decoder. None of the radios we've looked at, well, that's not true. The True SDX had CW memories, but the G90 does not have CW memories, and neither does this radio. All right, so if you're a CW op like I am, that can be a little bit obnoxious. It's not a big deal to have to key all your CQs and stuff, but it's nice to have those memories in there. This radio doesn't have it, and the G90 doesn't have it. So that's something to consider. All right. This radio is, so let's grab our cheat sheet, and we'll take a look at our specs. So the FX-4CR, it's currently unavailable. They're $550. Yu does these in batches, and when they're available, they're available. When they're not, and he currently doesn't have any available. I just checked the website, and he doesn't have any currently. It's 4.2 inches by 2.6 inches by 1.7 inches. It weighs about exactly a pound. Power output is 20 watts. It's got a color waterfall. This thing runs Bluetooth digital, so if you're a digital op, this is a really compelling radio. And I'm going to say right now that I don't know how this one's going to go yet. I don't know which radio is going to win yet. But regardless of which one wins, if you are a big digital operator and you want to run digital in the field, I would buy one of these or an ICOM IC705 just for the Bluetooth digital. I mean, that makes things so seamless. This radio is 80 meters to 6 meters. It runs phone, CW, and digital. And it was pretty bad on CW until I did the most recent firmware update. That made a pretty drastic difference in how the CW worked. So this radio is slightly more expensive. The G90 is normally $445. This is $550. Right? You can see how much smaller this radio is than the G90 is, though. The G90 is a big chonker, right? This FX-4CR is a little bitty thing. I mean, I can't even get the whole G90 in frame. You can kind of see the difference in size between these two radios. It's almost comical, right? This thing is so little. This is a very, very small radio, right? It has a lot of cool features. Now, the next iteration of this will have, in fact, I think he just sent out a batch that had these. We'll have side rails to protect the encoders, and it also has a fan. Now, one of the complaints people have with this if they run a lot of digital is it'll get hot. Now, I don't have problems with this getting hot because I'm primarily CW, and I usually run this thing at 5 watts. It'll get warm, but if you're running digital for any length of time, I guess these things can get pretty warm. The G90 can too, although I've never had an issue with it. I've made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of FT8 contacts in that thing at full 20 watts and never had an issue. But some people have, so that's something to keep in mind. Like I said, the current version of this radio has aluminum side rails. These side panels get replaced with ones that have machined. The build quality on this radio is exquisite. I only have one radio built better than this. This radio is built so well. Again, people whine and complain about Chinese radios. The G90's Chinese. That True SDX, even though it's designed in Europe, that was made in China. This is designed by a guy named Xiegu, BG2FX. He designs these. He builds them himself. It's him and one guy who does the software, and that's it. And these things are exceptionally well built. I mean, the machining is phenomenal. The tolerances are tight. Everything is high quality. This is a really, really, really well-built radio. All right. If you take one of these things apart and you look at it inside, it's a work of art. So don't let anybody tell you that all this thing's a pile of crap because it's Chinese. Not the case. This thing is phenomenally well built. This is a great radio. It just happens to come from China. This is not a mass-produced pile of junk like, a Baofeng UV5R. Not that I want to disparage the UV5R. It's got its place, but people, I think, have an expectation that all the Chinese radios are going to be junk. This thing is anything but. This thing is a phenomenal, phenomenal radio. So before we take a look at this, let's just go back to the G90 just to familiarize ourselves with some of the different aspects of that radio. So let me swap radios here. Let me grab the G90. And let me lower the camera. So we're looking pretty much straight at the radio. I'm going to stay back a little ways from this thing this time. to see if we can keep it in focus a little better. Let me see. This is when I'm not prepared. Let me disconnect my antenna from my shack radio here. I was using the radio earlier and left the antenna hooked up. So let me go ahead and hook my coax up to the G90. Maybe. There it goes. Okay. So we've got our coax hooked up. Let me get my power. I've got that Pro Audio Engineering power supply again. This is a really nice QRP power supply. If you want to run any of your QRP stuff at home, they've got, you could make your own pigtails, but this is a really nice, really clean power supply for QRP radios. And they have adapters for it. It comes with the correct adapter for like the Elecraft radios. I've got one for the G90. I've got one for the TX500. It's a really nice power supply. All right, so I got my antenna hooked up. I got my power supply hooked up. So let's go ahead and turn the radio on. Oops, that's not the volume. I'm turning the wrong knob. All right, so again, I have a really, really high noise floor on all my bands right now. I've been in contact with the power company multiple times about this power line noise issue. They know it's an issue. They've had a guy come out. I'm gonna have to keep on them until they get somebody here with some thermal imaging and find whatever's causing the issue. I led him to a row of about 8 power poles. I isolated it to that. If I need to, I'll put a Xiegu on my radio and go out and take them right to the pole, but they got to fix this. Anyway, so let's just talk about real quick some of the things about the G90 that we know. So we've got our color waterfall, so you can see right there. In fact, I've got some signals. All right, so we've got our waterfall. All right, let me see if I can find any stronger signals. Ooh, there's a nice strong one. Oh, there was. Anyway, while we're waiting for that to come, there it is.
3333, Western North Carolina. Thank you. November 4 Oscar.
All right, so we saw this before. I'm trying to make sure you can see everything and trying to make sure this isn't blurry. So again, we've got a color waterfall and a pan adapter. Here's our S meter. Here's our SWR meter, our filter. You can see we're on upper sideband on 20 meters. You can see a VFOB is on 40 meters. There's our voltage. There's our AGC. This radio is, this screen is very small, but it is very, very usable, right? Let's do this. Let me turn noise blanker on. That makes a little bit of difference. But this radio's got a lot of features. It's got a phenomenal internal tuner. The tuner in this thing is incredible. This radio, you know, the audio is fairly good. It's not amazing, but it's fairly good, even out of the internal speaker. You know, this radio has a lot of features. This is a really good starter radio. You know, like I said, it's 160 to 10. It'll do all modes. It's pretty user friendly. The screen is very readable. Like I said, this is a really, really great starter HF radio. So some of the standout features of this radio, that tuner, the tuner is amazing. 20 watts, being 20 watts is amazing. You know, I like this multifunction knob. You can set this up to do a lot of different things, much like the function knob on my FTDX10. You can set it up to do a whole bunch of different things. I've got it set up for key speed right now, so you'll see if I turn that, it sets key speed, right, which is one of my most used things. But it's got a lot of features. It's fairly user-friendly, and the price is right. All right, so I'm not going to rehash everything with the G90 because you saw that in my last video. So let me go ahead and turn that off. And we are going to unplug the power supply from this radio, get it out of the way, unhook the antenna from this radio. Bring the coax up. So let's go ahead and grab the FX-4CR. reposition the camera here so we can get a good angle on this radio. Try to get this as square up in the frame as I can. Bring this up a little higher, get the angle correct. Okay, that looks about where I want to be. Let's move this over this way, move this over this way just a little bit. See if I can get rid of that glare on the screen. It's going to be there no matter what I do. Actually, I know how I can fix that. Let's do this. There we go. Kill the ceiling lights, and that takes care of that problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab our adapter. We'll go ahead and hook an antenna up to this radio. And again, I am not going to transmit on this radio because I don't want to have to get a tuner out. This radio does not have an internal tuner. That's one of the great things about that G90 is that tuner is so good. All right, so we'll get our power cable. Go ahead and plug that guy in. And we will hook that up to power. All right, we are ready to go. Let's see if I can get this power cable out of the way. This wire this power cable is made out of is very, very stiff. That is one minor gripe that I have. Let me turn this light down just a tiny bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and fire this radio up. Now this screen on this thing is crystal clear. It doesn't do it justice on video. So there's some CW right there. That's out of the internal speaker, which is right here. So I'll hook a external speaker up. So he's in Nashville. He just sent Nashville. Now I sent an SKC, see it sounded like? So you can see it definitely sounds better on an external speaker, but the internal speaker is no slouch. 2.7. Missed that one. So anyway, like I said, this radio has a lot of really cool features. Like I said, you just cannot get a feel for how crisp and clear this screen is on camera. It comes all washed out and everything. It is not. It is super vibrant, super clear. It's very, very, very impressive. If you see the screen in real life, it does not. If you look at it on the screen here, it looks all washed out and cloudy. It's not. These blues are vibrant. Those reds are super bright. All these numbers are, I mean, razor sharp in real life. So if you ever get a chance to see what one of these things looks like in real life, you'll see what I mean. It's really a pretty impressive screen. So up here you can see where we've got transmit and receive, which means this radio is ready to receive. I have the attenuator off. Bluetooth is currently on. All right, it's not muted, so we have our speaker. We got 13.2 volts. We're on CW lower, on VFOA. You can see that I'm on CW. I'm on iambic. There's a little AB, and I'm currently on right-handed mode. All right, VFOA you can see is on 20 meters. VFOB you can see is on 6 meters. Here's our filter, 500 hertz currently. We don't have any RIT dialed in. All right, our side tone volume is 16. My side tone frequency is 580. My key speed is currently 21. All right, my volume is currently set at 11. And again, you can see our signals on our waterfall, and you can see the pan adapter. You can see the signals. It's like I said, in real life, this screen is so sharp and so clear. It's almost insane. So let's see if we can find some single sideband so you can hear what that sounds like. So you change between single sideband, here's single sideband, CW. This switches between memories and VFO. That's AM, FM. That switches between A and B VFO. That's RIT. You can also set this RIT button up as a push to talk. So if you want to use the internal mic, is this hole right here. right? So if you want to use the internal microphone in the menu, so if I go to menu, oh, that mutes it. I got to long press it. So if I go scroll through the menus and I scroll down, you will see. Keep going. Bluetooth, RIT PTT. Okay, I can turn this on and off. So it says 1, which means right now the RIT will work as a push to talk. If it says 0, it means that'll be off. You may not be able to see that on the screen. I don't know if that's going to be readable or not, but you can set this up, and it is set up right now, so that the RIT button will work as a push to talk on single sideband. So you hold the RIT button, you talk into the mic, you can use it on single sideband. You don't even need the external microphone, which I think is a kind of a neat feature. Now the True SDX has that feature, and I have a couple other radios that have that feature as well. But that's a nice feature on this radio. All right, so here's our VFO. So if we want to dial, right, and you'll see the little caret icon. If I want to move where that is, I can simply push in on the VFO and move it. And that will change where that caret is, which will change our tuning rate. All right, so let's go down 1. There you go. There's a nice, strong. All right, so that gives you an idea what the audio sounds like. That's halfway up. That's the internal speaker. Go back to the external speaker. So his name's Craig. He just said Craig. That was interesting because he said his name Craig, and then he started calling CQ again. Pretty sure he said Craig. Anyway, I wasn't paying too much attention. I'm pretty sure he sent Craig though. But you can hear. KM9U. All right, you can hear how much better the audio is with an external speaker, but the internal speaker is perfectly serviceable. So let's go ahead and move up to the single sideband portion of the band. So I'm gonna. So we'll move up to the single sideband. We'll put this in upper sideband. Let's go ahead and find ourselves a QSO. Oh, there we go. See if we can find a conversation going on here. Hit the attenuator. So this is a POTA station.
Kilo 0016, and that's Kilo Echo 4 Whiskey Mike Foxtrot, is that correct?
So we'll put it back on external.
Thank you, sir. What state are you in? Fantastic. Have fun activating out there. Thanks for getting out there.
So he's about a 5.5 maybe. And again, that's one of the nice things about having a waterfall is it's easy to find these, between the pan adapter and the waterfall, it's easy to find your QSOs.
QRP station, go ahead.
All right, so we'll turn that down.
Kilo Charlie 1, Romeo Bravo Yankee.
So we'll go ahead and unplug that. We're going to, why did I lose my sound? I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, I know what I did. I'll bet you I turned the squelch on. Let me see. Nope. There we go. Okay.
You're 5x9 Southern Wisconsin, QSL. QSL HUW Whiskey. Sorry for the last letter. I have you 5x7 in the Park K2973. Thanks
So,
for hunting. 73s, my friend. Take care. Kilo 4 Lima Charlie Delta.
So you can see the audio quality is quite good on this.
November 9 Charlie Delta.
So let me go ahead and turn this off. And I'm going to unhook the antenna. I'm going to throw a dummy load on here. I'll let you see what the side tone sounds like. Now, the side tone is not super loud on this radio. It's much better with a external speaker. It's not bad. It's just, it's hard, like, especially if I'm doing videos, it's a little bit quiet for the video. We get a key. Let's see. My key should be over here. CW key, there we go. So we got to turn it back on. So obviously we're not going to hear anything now since we're on a dummy load. So I'm going to go ahead and move us back down to the CW portion of the band. Not that it matters. We'll put us back in CW. All right, so. All right, so if I want to turn the side tone up, let's see if I remember correctly, you push in on the AF. That's my squelch. I don't remember how to do this. Is it this one? No, I feel like it's this one. Yeah, key speed, there we go. There's key speed. Side tone 580. Side tone volume 16. So this is as loud as the side tone is going to go on this thing. All right, so. Now let me hook it up to an external speaker. Turn that volume up. So you can see it's markedly louder with an external speaker. So this radio is perfectly serviceable with the internal speaker, but it's nicer to run with an external speaker. Now I don't know if you can see it or not, but if I key this radio up, actually let me put it in straight key mode. All right, watch right here. Gives us power output of 5 watts, and I'll have this set to 5 watts, and an SWR of 1 to 1. So this has an SWR display right there, and a power display right there. All right, so we have both SWR and power displays on this radio, which I really like on my radios. All right, I'll hold that up. All right, now hopefully that was probably a little out of focus, but hopefully you can read it. As far as changing bands, you just push the F button and then move your bands. There's 80, 60, 40, 30, 20, 17, 15, 12, 10, and 6. All right, when you're done, you just hit the F button again. If you go into the menu, all right, so here's all the different things we can change in here. We can change CW delay for your relays, your AGC speed, Bluetooth on and off, the RIT push to talk, the encoder frequency, the transmit filter, compression, LCD backlight, right? So we can change that, all those kind of things. So all those different things are changeable from in here. We'll go ahead and get out of the menu. The power button obviously does what it sounds like. If I long press it, it turns it off. If I short press it, I can turn the power up and down, so it'll go all the way down to 1/10 of a watt. All right. So this radio will go all the way down to 1/10 of a watt and all the way up to 20 watts. All right. This is actually a really cool little radio. I really like this radio. So let me go ahead and turn this off. The Bluetooth on this thing works flawlessly. I've used it many times with FT8CN to do FT8 on my phone. It works great. No problems connecting. Works every time. Now, FT8CN itself can be a little funky. That's kind of like a half-baked cake right there. It works, but it's a little wonky. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about these two radios. Let me get the camera back up a little bit. Grab the G90. All right, let's talk about these two radios and their use cases and why you might choose one over the other, and then we'll try to pick a winner. Now, that's going to be hard between these two radios. They're both 20-watt radios. They're both awesome in their own right. So let's start with the G90. 20 watts, fantastic internal tuner, color waterfall, color pan adapter, CW decoder, the quick function keys you can set to do, quick function knob for things like CW speed, things like that. Doing digital on this is not as nice. You're going to need a digirig or the C19 connector, whatever that thing is, whatever nonsense Xiegu has that they created for this thing. It's kind of kludgy, but that goofy looking connector that you got all the wires sticking out of, it looks like an octopus, that'll work. There are other options for it too. The digirig's so easy that I just use that. But this radio's got a lot going for it. Now, the FX-4CR, a little more expensive. Build quality is better on the FX-4CR. This is built decent. This is built better. This radio is 160 to 6. This is only 80 to 6. Now, how useful is 160? I guess that depends on you. Obviously, here in my shack, 160 isn't a big deal. I've run 160 on this radio. Now, my FTDX10, the tuner in that radio will not tune 160 on my 71-foot random wire, which doesn't surprise me because it's only 71 feet long. This will tune it up, and I have made 160 contacts on this radio on that exact antenna. So the tuner in this thing is ridiculous. This radio, the screen is better. It doesn't the actual reaction time, the refresh rate is faster on the screen. The waterfall is more responsive, but this one's clearer and easier to read. The Bluetooth digital on this thing is killer. If you're going to do digital, buy this radio. All right. I'm not saying this is the radio overall that I would choose between these two necessarily. I haven't made that decision yet. We're going to do that right now. But if you're going to do digital, if you're primarily a digital operator and it's between these two radios, buy one of these. All right. Neither one of these has CW memories. They're both relay radios. I guess it comes down to, do you want an internal tuner or do you want Bluetooth digital? And how many features do you want in the radio? This radio's got some features that this one doesn't have. I can tell you right now, if I'm going to carry it in the field, and it's going to be not going to be my only radio. So if I can have more than one radio and I'm going to buy one just for field use, I'd probably buy the FX-4CR because it is so much smaller. This is a heavy little radio. I mean, it's nowhere near as heavy as this. It weighs pound and a half, It's heavy. It's not light compared to the other radios we've looked at. This thing is kind of chunky, but this thing is a monster. So if I was going on that particular criteria, I would have to go with this radio. However, if it's going to be your first radio and it has to do everything, this radio is a little limited. It doesn't have a tuner. It's missing some of the features that this radio has, some of the quick functions. It's much easier to change some of the features on this radio than it is on this radio. Mode hopping and band hopping is easier on this radio. Doing things like adjusting the compression or the noise blank or the AGC is easier on this radio. Obviously, the tuner is a killer on this radio. I love both of these radios, and I like the FX-4CR better for a lot of things, but I think if I had to choose between these two radios, you said you have to keep one of these and get rid of one of these, and it's going to be your only radio. It's still going to be the G90. I think that it's a more polished package overall, which is crazy because most of Xiegu's stuff is kind of a hot mess. This radio is pretty well sorted out. This radio is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I love this radio. But I just think that because this thing is not very, if this was substantially lighter or if it had an internal battery, that might skew the results. Like if this had an internal, or if this had a tuner in it, I can tell you right now, this radio would win over this radio. But because this doesn't have a tuner, so I need an external tuner. It doesn't have an internal battery. It is very heavy for how small it is. I mean, it's a tank. I think that there are a few things that this radio lacks that this radio has. And I think this is a little more versatile radio unless you're doing digital. If you're going to do digital, this is a better radio for you. All right, but at the end of the day, if I have to pick a winner, and that's kind of how this goes, it's still going to be this G90. As crazy as that may seem, out of those two radios, I think this is a more complete package. You know, it definitely has some compromises. It's much bigger, right? I mean, it's way bigger. It's way heavier. So if it's going to be a soda radio, well, I wouldn't want to use either one of these radios as a soda radio, to be honest with you. This thing is a tank. But, you know, carrying this thing up a mountain would really suck. This would sort of suck. This one would really suck. But for pretty much anything else, I think this is probably going to be a better radio for you, for most people. Again, it's subjective, but I just think the feature set on this radio is hard to beat at this price point. And compared to this radio and the feature set that it has, like I said, unless you want that Bluetooth digital, right? If you are a digital op, you kind of need to go with the FX-4CR. But if you're not going to primarily operate digital, I really do think that at the end of the day, it's got to be that G90. All right, so as much as I love the FX-4CR, that one is getting retired from the competition, which means the next set will be this G90 versus the next full-featured radio in line. And knowing what that radio is going to be, this is going to be a hard competition. This G90 is going to have a really hard time trying to keep up with that radio. So hopefully, again, this gave you some information if you're looking at buying a radio, or even if you're not looking at buying one of these particular radios. At least it gives you an idea of some of the feature sets that you might want to look at, right? What features are important to you? Do you need to worry about an internal tuner? Is a tuner important to you? If it is, the G90 is the way to go. Conversely, if Bluetooth digital or digital in general is something you want to run, I mean, this radio is literally, even if you don't want to run Bluetooth, you plug that end goes in the radio right here, and the other end goes into your PC, or, you know, it's got a USB-A. I've got a USB-C adapter on here. I can plug this into my phone. In fact, I have, or you can plug it into a PC or anything that's got a USB-C port on it, or if you want to run A, pop that guy off. So you can run wired, and you don't need any sound card. This has an internal sound card, so I don't need, like this, I need a digirig for. This thing, you just plug it in. If the thing doesn't have Bluetooth, run this USB cable. If it's got Bluetooth, you don't even need cables. You just turn the Bluetooth on this, pair it to your device, be it a computer or your phone or whatever, and you're running. So if you're doing Bluetooth, buy the FX-4CR. Other than that, this is kind of a niche radio. This is probably not for everyone, all right? I think if you look at most people that have these, they'll have some gripes about some very specific things about it. Up until recently, the CW was one of those things that I wasn't a fan of. Now it's quite good. But I think at the end of the day, the G90 is just a more complete package. So like I said, we're gonna retire the FX-4CR from the competition. And the G90 lives to fight another day, and its next opponent is going to be a tough one. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And until the next one, 7-3.